again to our show that is called Real Shame. It's a show where we watch movies from our movie list of shame or movie blind spots. I'm Adam.
I'm Andy.
This week we're watching a couple movies that I've never seen. And you know what the name of the movie is if you're looking at the title. So why don't we get into that? What are we watching today?
A young woman in the South endures abuse, both spousal and otherwise, and longs for a better life and to find the sister and children she has not seen since she was young. In The Color Purple.
I know he a bully, but there's some things I love about him.
You still love him?
I got what you call passion for him. If I was ever gonna have a husband, he'd been it, but he weak. Tell me the truth, Celie. Do you mind if Albert sleep with me?
You like sleeping with him?
I have to confess, I love it. Don't you?
No, most time I just pretend like I ain't even there. He don't know the difference. He don't never ask me how I feel, just never ask me nothing about myself. Just climb on top of me, do his business.
Do his business? Do his Well, Miss Celie, you sound like he going to the toilet on you.
So The Color Purple was directed by some guy named Steven Spielberg. Who's that guy? I don't know who that guy is. Yeah, no. Obviously, Steven Spielberg, super well-known director. This was the film that he did. I guess he done Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom directly before this. I don't think he did a film in between there. Otherwise, he'd have been a busy guy. Although he's made a lot of movies in his career.
He's done like 2 years before, like with Jurassic Park and Schindler's List, Blizzard 94, I believe.
He's pretty prolific. This movie was written by, I'll probably butcher this name, but it's Mino Mayes. It's Dutch. I'm terrible at Dutch pronunciation. But Minnow did it's Menno. I know it makes it sound like I'm saying minnow like a fish, but it's Menno. Minnow did the story and or screenplay for Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, speaking of Steven Spielberg films.
Movies of all time.
Ricochet with Denzel Washington, and The Siege, which we just did recently. Well, also, of course, with Denzel Washington. The score is not by John Williams, although it is a Steven Spielberg movie, and most of the time he works with John Williams.
Yeah.
It's Quincy Jones.
I was going to say, could have fooled me.
Yeah, it is. Oh, you thought it sounded like John Williams?
I thought it sounded a lot like John Williams.
Yeah, so the score's by Quincy Jones, not John Williams. And Quincy Jones also gets a producer credit. I noticed that. He's one of the producers of the movies. And this movie is adapted from a 1982 Pulitzer Prize-winning novel by Alice Walker. So the cast, and it says this in the credits, it's introducing Whoopi Goldberg. This was kind of her first major film role. She was a comedian already at this point, and she is now an EGOT winner. She's got, I think, 2 Emmys, 1 Grammy, 1 Oscar, and 1 Tony.
Wow.
But Whoopi was born Karen Elaine Johnson. Her name's not actually Whoopi Goldberg, just FYI. Karen Elaine Johnson. I know, I ruined it. I spoiled it. But Whoopi Goldberg plays Celie Harris, or Celie Johnson, because she does get married. Akosia Buja. I looked up an interview with her, and they pronounced her name. So it's Akosia Buja plays her sister, Nettie Harris. And I found it kind of interesting because Whoopi Goldberg plays Celie Harris, and there's actually a younger actress playing the young Celie Harris. But Akosia Buja plays both the young Nettie and the old Nettie with the help of some older age makeup. Danny Glover plays Albert Johnson. Danny Glover had a busy 1985. I don't think I mentioned this movie did come out in 1985. Maybe I did. Danny Glover had a busy 1985. In addition to The Color Purple, he made the movie Witness with Harrison Ford and the movie Silverado, the Western that Lawrence Kasdan did. I think he had one other movie also that came out in 1985, but I didn't write it down.
Was it Lethal Weapon?
Was it what? Lethal Weapon came out in 87, I believe.
Okay.
Margaret Avery plays Shug Avery. Margaret Avery had been acting in film and television since at least the 1970s, and she'd actually worked with Steven Spielberg before on a TV movie he did called Something Evil back in the 1970s. So they had worked together before. Willard Pugh plays Harpo, and that's appropriate because Oprah Winfrey's production company is called Harpo Studios, and of course Harpo is Oprah spelled backwards. Oprah Winfrey, of course, is also in this movie. She plays Sophia. Tommy Chong's daughter, Rae Dawn Chong, plays Squeak. Rae Dawn Chong, I recently saw her in the new season of American Crime Story, the impeachment one. She played like the secretary to Bill Clinton. the terrible Bill Clinton accent that Clive Owen tried to do. Lawrence Fishburne, Morpheus himself, plays Swain. And the last two people I want to mention, Carl Anderson, who's honestly not in the movie very much, and I don't know that he has any dialogue. He plays the Reverend Samuel, who Nettie ends up going to live with. They go to Africa, and they eventually make their way back to the States. I mentioned Carl Anderson because he plays Judas Iscariot in my favorite musical, Jesus Christ Superstar, and he is the best Judas Iscariot of all time in Jesus Christ Superstar. He's so amazing. But he's not really in this movie very much. But I thought I would mention him. And finally, Gayle King, who I guess is like Oprah's bestie.
Yeah.
Gayle King is an extra in the choir scene. I didn't know she was in the movie, so I didn't know to look for her, so I didn't see her. But she's in there. She's one of the choir members.
But
apparently.
now you know to look for
Now
her.
you know, if you have not seen this or if you want to watch it, you know to look for Gayle King because she's in the choir scene. All right, so this is a movie that I have seen once before, and it was a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
And I know this is one of your Spielberg gaps. We already did Empire of the Sun, which is another
But
Spielberg
we both
gap.
like that a lot.
Yes.
Was that your Spielberg gap too?
No, I saw that's one I saw in the theater when
Okay.
I was very young, so it had been a while since I've seen it. But I think I saw this movie, I don't know. I say this all the time, but I feel like I saw it sometime in the 1990s, and I didn't remember a whole lot about this film. But it's a movie that you've never seen before.
I think I'm missing 1942 and Schindler's List.
1941.
1941.
And Schindler's List, and the first movie he did, Sugarland Express.
Yes.
Probably, right.
Yeah.
Probably other than that, you've probably seen them all.
There might be one or two that I missed, but yeah, I think I've seen them all.
All right, well, we'll fill those in at some point. But, Quint, Color Purple, what did you know about this movie, if anything, and what did you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that Steven Spielberg directed this movie, and I knew about the cast and stuff like that. I kind of knew about the time period. I knew it was generally when it was going to take place.
Yeah.
But other than that, I was going to say I thought I remember it being well regarded, but I'm honestly not sure if that's accurate or not. I know.
It was.
I know it got like some Oscar nominations and maybe even won a few, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I do want to say I think people's opinions on the movie have cooled since the movie came out in 1985. I think society has progressed and people have progressed, and maybe this kind of movie is the way this movie is not as beloved as it was when it came out in 1985. I think that is. What would you say? That's a true statement? Because
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't know what people think about it now.
Because it's been like what 37 years? Is that how math works? Something like that.
Since 1985, yes.
Yep.
37.
Okay. So that's kind of what I knew going into it, right? And so the question is, how do I feel about this movie? I'm not the biggest fan of this movie. I think it's kind of a miss for Spielberg.
Yeah.
I don't think Spielberg at this time was I don't think he was the right choice to direct a movie like this. I say that in like 2022 with hindsight, right? I mean, having a big director tell a story about, the Black American experience and all that kind of stuff is probably, it was great. And it probably shined a light on what happened and all that kind of stuff. And it was probably beneficial, but nowadays you would probably want to get a Black director to kind of direct that. And I think this movie's getting remade next year. I think it comes out as a remake of this movie's coming out.
Oh. Okay.
So I'll be curious about that. The reason why I don't think it really works for me is it just feels like some of the things that Spielberg does so well is just like this like amazement and this wonder and this kind of like childlike kind of curiosity and all this kind of stuff. And so you have this whole movie where these terrible things are happening to these people. Like you said, Celie just goes through terrible things her whole life. She gets molested and raped by her father. She loses her kids. She gets married off, who gets raped and molested by the person she's married to. She endures all these hardships, and the movie just treats it like it's this magical time period to me, and all this kind of things. And I'm like, no, this is like a harrowing story. The movie needs to be shown it, and it's like kind of like in the way it is, in this more realistic kind of grounded way, where I feel like it treats it more kind of almost fantastical. And I don't know what makes me feel that way about the movie. I don't know if it's just me coming to it, being a fan of Spielberg and knowing like, well, he did, E.T., he did, the Indiana Jones movies, he did Jurassic Park, and like if that's informing my opinion on the way Spielberg directed, or if it's actually something in the way he directed it that is making me react to it that way, right? So I don't know where that is. But for me, it just felt like there's this big conflict in tones between what the story is and what's going on with Seeley and the way the movie presents it and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And even like Quincy Jones's score is kind of like, it kind of has that John Williams, that magical feel to it. And it's just like, it doesn't feel like it just, for me, it rubs against this whole movie, because I feel like it should be something that's a little bit more, less like, not positive, but it's less, it should, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like it fits the tone of the movie for me.
Mm.
And the last thing is, like, I feel like this movie's very melodramatic, and I don't know if that is for the time in 1985, if that's where we're going, but it just feels like everyone's really putting everything in it, and there's not like a whole lot of subtlety in the movie for me, right? So when I watch it, I'm just like, I don't like roll my eyes, but sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. Like this big performance or this big reactions coming out. It's not like, subtle, but I does any of that make sense to you? Am I right or wrong on any of that?
Well, you are. It's not. I don't think it's a question of right or wrong. It's just however you feel.
Yeah. So that's kind of. I have some more that I could get into, but that's kind of my initial reaction. Is I don't think Steven Spielberg at the time was. I feel like I can't really say that. I just don't think the tone of the movie, the way it was directed, really matches the kind of story that they were trying to tell, and that's what kind of bothers me. So I don't want to blame it on Spielberg or anything like that, but that's kind of ultimately where I fall with it.
Yeah.
So you said you've seen it once before. What'd you remember about The Color Purple, and what'd you think about it this time around?
I didn't remember a whole lot about it. I think when I saw it the first time, once again, I was just kind of trying to check off some boxes, and I knew that it was a very acclaimed film, and I knew that it was a Steven Spielberg film that I had not seen. So I was kind of eager to check it off my list, and I don't think I was old enough to really understand, or didn't have and I say this all the time, I sound like a broken record, but didn't have the life experience maybe to understand. Again, I don't understand what she went through.
Yeah.
But as far as just a basic understanding of it, just seeing it even through her eyes, I didn't really have, I wasn't mature enough, I guess is probably the best way to say that. So watching it this time, it was almost like watching it for the first time. I agree with a little bit of what you said. I mean, I don't think Steven Spielberg is the right guy to direct this. I mean, especially nowadays, he would not be, as you said, he would not be the person to direct this film. But my biggest problem with Spielberg is you touched on it, you said it. I think all of his stuff is melodramatic for the most part. Many of his movies they have a bit too much melodrama in them for me. I'm not saying I dislike a lot of his movies. In fact, I like a lot of his movies. But he does have, he has made movies, as you said, like E.T. and the Indiana Jones movies that are exciting and action-packed, and they are filled with wonderment, and they're kind of hearkening back to the movies that he and George Lucas saw, or the serials that he and George Lucas saw when he was younger. But when you put that kind of stuff in the more dramatic films, it doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
And this movie, I feel like Spielberg gets in the way of himself, or gets in the way of the movie sometimes. I always mention Poltergeist because I think that Steven Spielberg had a huge hand in directing that movie. Or at least in how it was going to, the finished product was going to be. And I feel like that torpedoes that movie. Like, I don't like Poltergeist because I feel like it's so melodramatic. And it's not scary to me. It is more filled with wonderment and amazement. And I don't think it fits for a movie like Poltergeist. But I think this movie, I still think this movie is good. And I think it's watchable. And I think the performances and everything are good. And it did, as you said, it got nominated for a lot of Academy Awards, and deservedly so. I think I like this movie overall, or I know I like this movie overall, but I roll my eyes with a lot of the melodrama in it, because I feel like that's Spielberg telling them to play it up more, and I'm just like, oh, God, and I know, I think you and I both wrote down in our notes, like, oh, it's melodramatic, it's a melodrama, yeesh, especially at one part, I wrote down the quote when she and Nettie are being separated, and Nettie's like, why?
Yeah.
Nothing but death will keep me from you. I was like, gosh, that's so over the top.
And it lasts for
you know?
like 3 minutes. Or
Yeah,
just,
I mean,
like,
and
walking.
you know, not all the movies like that. So the parts where you don't have that really, really melodramatic stuff are fine, but stuff like that, I'm just like, man, this belongs in a soap opera or something, which this is not. So yeah, I agree with that, but I think that it's watchable overall. My biggest problems are when that melodrama really takes hold, and it takes hold in several parts. I felt like the last, because the movie's about 2.5 hours long. I feel like the last 30 minutes of it feels really rushed. Like so much happens in the last half hour, and the first 2 hours it's kind of very developed slowly. The final half an hour, it's like, oh, we got to do all this other stuff that was in the book, and okay, now we wrap it up, and she's reunited with his sister and her children, and it's all done, and it just kind of ends. So I feel like it's a mixed bag. I do like it, but I see what you're saying, definitely.
And I think, like, and I'm thinking about it, like, I don't think the same Spielberg that made this movie is the same Spielberg who made Empire of the Sun and Schindler's List, right? Because I think, like, Empire's Sun, you can still have some of the wonderment because you have Christian Bale's character as a child, right?
Right.
But I don't think, and I've seen bits and pieces of Schindler's List. I haven't seen all of it. But the stuff I've seen of Schindler's List and does not have the same kind of feel that this movie has for everything, right? So I do think as Spielberg matured more, he was able to kind of tackle movies like this that need a more subtle or gentle hand to it. These kind of stories, right? And I just don't feel like at this point in time, coming off of, like you said, an Indiana Jones, coming off, some of these big hits, it was done as deftly as it needed to be done. At least for me. And again, I could be putting a whole lot of my opinion and thought into this and reading way more into it than what everyone else does. Is just, that's how I kind of attacked it at this point in time and watching it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I totally get it. I do think the cinematography is really great. But it's by Alan Daviau. I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name. And I know I've seen his name on plenty of other movies. Unfortunately, I didn't write down specifically what other films that he shot. But I think it's very beautiful to look at. I feel like this is a film that in like 4K with HDR and all that stuff, the colors would, not just the color purple, but all the colors would really, really pop. But there's some really just, again, beautiful vistas. It takes place in Georgia. I don't remember exact. I think they may have filmed in Georgia. I don't remember specifically where they filmed all of it, but it looks great. Yeah. And there's some cool shots. One in particular that I wrote down is because Danny Glover, he wants to marry Nettie. He doesn't want to marry, because everybody thinks Celie is ugly.
Well, he wants to marry Shug, and then he can't marry Shug, then wants to marry Nettie, then gets married off to Celie, right? Is that...
Yeah, so he gets married to Celie, and then Nettie, because basically it turns out to be their stepfather, but they think it's their father. Either way, it doesn't make it right. I'm just saying. But their father, later they find out it's their stepfather, rapes Celie at the beginning of the film, and basically she has 2 children by him who both get taken away. And then after she leaves, after she gets married off to Danny Glover's character, the father sets his sights on Nettie. So Nettie runs away, and she comes to Albert and Celie's home. And I love that shot because they had that house with that great big porch, and Celie and Nettie are standing side by side after Nettie has just shown up. Yeah. And he's like, okay, she stay. And Danny Glover walks forward, and he walks directly in front of Celie to where she's hidden now. And all he sees is Nettie. Because that's from his perspective. He's lusting after her already. I think that's a great shot. And there's several shots like that in the movie that, just are really, really rich. I like that. But again, I think the movie overall is good. Oh, the part where, because they've got basically kind of the juke joint where Shug sings. And I think the singing voice for Shug doesn't match her at all. Okay. Like, to me, it was very jarring every time, because it's clearly somebody else that's singing, not Margaret Avery.
I didn't even piece those together.
I think that voice does not sound like it's coming out of Margaret Avery. It doesn't look realistic to me at all. But I did not like that part at all when they're singing in the juke joint and the church is singing, because the preacher of the church is Shug Avery's father, the estranged father. He doesn't want anything to do with her. they're both singing and they start to overlap, and then they start making their way, and then they all kind of come.
It's like how they
It's
get.
just,
To
it's
the
just like a
church so
big
fast.
music video.
Yeah.
It's silly to me. I can't stand that part because at no time in the rest of the movie is it really established that you could hear it from there. You could hear the church from the juke joint, or vice versa.
Well, they do.
I felt like that just came out of the blue.
It did. I mean, it came from that scene, right? Because they were, I guess, the juke. So this is me rationalizing it, but I totally agree your point. I think like the juke joint probably never really happened on Sundays whenever church was happening, and then you could see like in the church they could hear the music from the juke joint, and he's getting to play louder, sing louder, and I think that's what leads to it. But I agree with you. Before that established, I would have thought that they would have been in different areas of the town or whatever.
I think I misspoke. I don't wish that they would have, it doesn't irritate me that they didn't establish that beforehand, but because they didn't establish that beforehand, I feel like establishing that beforehand makes it more dramatic or makes it, it makes it a better scene, because if at various points in the movie they're like, oh, that damn church, or that, or something like that, you kind of hear, or that they're close enough in proximity to where one could bleed into the other, and then finally it's just like, no, we're all going to come together, this one day when they overlap. I don't know. I'm probably nitpicking, but I thought I find that scene very silly, and I'm sure people love that scene, but I find it corny.
And I agree with you. And the other thing too is like, I feel like we don't really need that development for Shook's character at all either, because it doesn't really add anything, and we're really not focused on that. All it does is add more running time, like, to the movie and stuff, and we're not getting a whole lot out of it.
Yeah.
Because like if they want to do something like that, like what if they had shots where she's singing at the juke joint and her dad's at the church, and he's just like, oh, there she is, like, living her sinful life.
Yeah.
Like that would have filled out her story a lot more.
Right.
But they didn't even do that, right? So I feel like all the stuff where it's not really centered around, Celie and was it Nettie, right?
Yes.
Nettie's stuff is just a waste for the movie, because I feel like the book, I haven't read the book, but I feel like the book is way too sprawling for what we get in the movie, and I think the ending is a good indicator of that, where they try to compress it all together. So I kind of wish the movie would have focused less on these other ancillary characters and focus more on Celie and Nettie, and not had all that kind of extra stuff in there.
Yeah. One thing I did want to say was I do think Whoopi Goldberg is really good in this movie, because I'm used to seeing Whoopi Goldberg in comedies, Jumpin' Jack Flash, or Sister Act 2, and apparently there's a Sister Act 3 coming out soon. Or I think it's in pre-production.
Tammy
something like that.
Was she in Tammy and the Rex?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Oh, no, you're thinking of the other one that she did with the dinosaur.
Yeah,
I don't remember the name of that movie. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, though. Yeah, so it's something Rex, I believe.
Theodore Rex?
Yeah, maybe something like that. Yeah, Theodore Rex. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's done some questionable movies for sure. But I think she's really good in this. I do think the more that she gains confidence, the more she does kind of turn into Whoopi, as the movie goes along. But I do think she does a great performance, and I do there are points in the movie where she smiles for the first time, or not for the first time, but she smiles when Shug is kind of comforting her and everything. I think that those are really, really nice scenes and very, very well acted. Nobody ages in the movie, or I'm sorry, everybody ages in the movie except for, I noticed, Rae Dawn Chong. I don't think they bothered with any older age makeup for her, because she still looked great even when everybody else had wrinkles and stuff.
Who's she?
She was when Oprah's character leaves Harpo, she's kind of his next in line.
Yeah.
She never really aged, but everybody else. I thought that was kind of funny.
All the stuff that happened to Oprah's character was terrible too.
Oh,
and again,
for sure.
I feel like it took away from the main story too. Again, I'm really actually, after seeing this movie, I kind of am jumping in on you. I'm sorry.
No,
it makes me really interested to see the new adaptation of it, because I'm kind of curious what it's going to focus on, and see if it will make a tighter story out of the whole thing.
I wasn't even aware there was a new one coming out. I found that interesting. All right. So are we?
No,
we're down?
I think I've established where I fall on this movie.
Okay, so yeah, I think I like it. I definitely like it more than you, but I could see some of your points. So it was nominated for 11, count them, 11 Academy Awards, but it did not win anything.
Titanic numbers. Well, minus that part.
Yeah, right. It won nothing, and this was the year at the Academy Awards that Out of Africa, Sidney Pollack's Out of Africa with Robert Redford and Meryl Streep steamrolled everybody. It's one of those kind of movies. So all of the nominations that it was Best Picture, Best Actor, 2 different nominations for Best Supporting Actress. Oprah and Margaret Avery both were nominated for Best Supporting Actress. By the way, Whoopi was nominated for Best Actress. Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Art Direction, Best Cinematography, Best Costume Design, Best Makeup, Best Original Score, Quincy Jones, and Best Original Song for the Miss Seeley's Blues song that Suge Avery sings. All of those nominations lost to Out of Africa, except the actress, Best Actress, Whoopi lost to Geraldine Page for The Trip to Bountiful. Best Supporting Actress, Oprah and Margaret Avery lost to Angelica Houston for Prizzi's Honor. And the Best Original Song lost to White Nights, the song Say You, Say Me. But what was interesting about that is Lionel Richie is a writer on both songs. Oh. So he had 2 songs up for nomination. He won for Say You, Say Me for White Nights. He lost for Miss Seeley's Blues, Best Original Song.
Have you seen Out of Africa?
I have. I really like it. It's a really good movie.
I've not heard of it.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I like it better than Color Purple, so it doesn't bother me that it beat Color Purple. But I think it's weird that this didn't win anything. But
with that many nominations,
with that many nominations, it's completely shut out, right? Yeah. But this movie is, at least right now, on HBO Max. If you care to check it out or revisit it or whatever, it is 81% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 94% audience score, 2 big thumbs up. Gene Siskel picked this as the 3rd best movie of the year. Roger Ebert picked it as the best movie of 1985. Wow. And Leonard Maltin gives it 3.5 out of 4 stars. Wow. So Siskel picked it as number 3 for his top 10 list. Do you have any idea what he picked as number 1?
Out of Africa?
For 1985. No.
Was it the
that was a good guess, though.
White Knight movie?
This one is difficult. He picked Shoah, which is a 9 or 10 hour long documentary about the Holocaust. Wow. And Roger Ebert said, "Hey, I would have put that on my top 10 list, but it's so good it doesn't even it's in a category all its own." Wow. So that's why it didn't make Roger Ebert's.
Have you seen Shoah?
I have never sat down to watch it. That's a commitment. Oh, of course, I doubt I would watch it all in one sitting anyway. I would have to break it up. But no, I need to see it because I know it's an important documentary to see, but I have never gotten around to seeing it. Wow. But yeah, that was Gene Siskel's pick for the best film of 1985. And yeah, so this film, I've always thought this movie was a 1986 release. And it was released wide in February of 1986, but it had a limited release in 1985. So it's actually a 1985 film.
For the awards, I guess.
Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. Right. It was played in L.A., in December of 1985, just so it could be at the 1986 Academy Awards. But anyway, so what have we been watching? We'll move on to that. I guess you can go first this time.
Yeah, I'll go first this time. So, like you said, we always like to follow up our Monday episodes with what we've been watching. I watched 1 movie that you've seen, and then 2 that I don't know if you've seen. So the first movie I watched, I think you talked about it last week or the week before, was Riders of Justice.
Yes.
Remind me, were you a fan of this movie or were you not a fan of this movie?
I liked it. I thought it was different. Yeah. It had maybe some kind of weird, quirky humor at times that I wasn't quite on board with, but I liked it overall. Yeah,
that's exactly how I feel. I think it's interesting, and I think I like it overall. I think some of the stuff where they try to go for comedy in it,
it's a little bizarre.
It's a little bizarre, and it doesn't really quite hit, and it feels a little weird. So there's a couple little rough spots or something like that. But I think overall it's pretty good. I mean, Maz Nicholson, I think, is awesome, and
he's such a badass.
Have you seen the Pusher trilogy?
I have never seen those movies.
Okay, because I hear he plays like a drug dealer in that. He's not a drug dealer in this movie, but he plays like a drug dealer, I think. And
he is in real life, though.
Yeah, he is in real life, and he looks threatening. I mean, I like him. I think he's a really good actor.
Guy, yeah.
And he looks so different with the shaved head and the beard. He kind of has a distinctive face, but when with the beard, I guess it's enough to kind of offset and stuff. So yeah, I think generally I like it. There's some weirdness in it. That I don't know if maybe it's a cultural thing that we didn't quite
He may be.
and stuff like that. But
Yeah, I've told several people that they need to check it out. So it's people that I know that have Hulu because it's on Hulu. I was like,
Hulu.
You should watch Riders of Justice. It's a movie that you probably never heard of, but check it out. It's cool.
Yeah. I watched that off of yours and other people's recommendation. The other movie I watched was The Alpinist. Have you heard of The Alpinist?
No.
All right. So we had Free Solo that won. Did it win? It got nominated for at least for an Academy Award a couple years ago. I
did see that.
Who the guy who climbed mountains? I can't think of his name right now. Well, we have a bunch of movies by the same directors, producers of those movies, and so this year's I'm calling Free Solo. I don't know if they want to be grouped together. Is The Alpinist. It's about another mountain climber that likes to climb basically these mountains that are covered with like snow and ice and all this stuff, and they talk about.
And this is still like free climbing.
This is like free climbing, like by yourself and stuff like that. And this guy who does it, and it's crazy. It's another like I think Free Solo is a little bit better than this movie, but I'm very confident to say that if you found Free Solo interesting and you like that, then The Alpinist is another kind of movie of that ilk that you might enjoy. And I believe The Alpinist is on Netflix, so it's really easy to watch.
Okay.
So yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay.
And they actually interviewed the guy from Free Solo, and his name was right on the tip of my tongue, and now it's gone. So
I am no help with that. I've seen it, but I don't remember his name.
And the other movie I watched is The Rescue, and this was on Disney Plus, and this is about the rescue that they did for the Thai soccer team that was trapped in the caves a few years ago. You remember hearing about that in the news?
Maybe.
Okay. So there's like
doesn't ring a bell right now.
So yeah, there was like a youth soccer team. They're like like early teens or maybe preteen boys, and they were exploring the cave during monsoon season in Thailand, and basically like this vast tunnel system, and it basically flooded, and they were trying to get out and rescue these kids that were under. I think they're in there for like 2 weeks. I think it was like 14 days or something like that.
Wow.
And it's this vast interconnected tunnel system and all this stuff, and like there's no easy way to get to them, and they couldn't even tell if the boys were alive and all this kind of stuff. The really interesting thing about it is that they utilize recreational divers that would like cave dive and go in these tight places because they had more experience than like the Thai Navy SEALs and like the military and all that kind of stuff to get it. It's a really good documentary. It's really interesting and really fascinating. And I knew of the story, but I didn't know all the details. So there was a lot to me that I kind of learned from it, and it was really interesting. And I thought it was a really good documentary. So those are the 3 things I've been watching: Riders of Justice, The Alpinist, and The Rescue. So what have you been watching?
All right, so we did Shaft and Superfly, and I mentioned some blaxploitation films, I think at the end of Shaft or one of those episodes. I watched a couple of more blaxploitation movies that I'd never seen because they're both on HBO Max. Cleopatra Jones and Cleopatra Jones and the Casino of Gold, the sequel. I think they're both fun movies. So they both star Tamara Dobson as Cleopatra Jones. She had a modeling career before she kind of broke into acting. She didn't have much of an acting career. She did do some other things besides Cleopatra Jones, but that's kind of probably her most well-known stuff. But she's listed as like 6'2", so she was tall, and
like
she's
tall.
She's a badass. Like she's doing kung fu and kicking dudes in the face and all kinds of stuff. But I thought they were really fun kind of just action movies.
Cool.
Silly. She has some really fun and funny dialogue in those movies. But yeah, I enjoyed them. I watched them not quite back to back, but pretty close together. Because I watched one, I didn't really intend to watch the sequel, but I had so much fun with the first one. I was like, I'm going to watch the sequel. So I think the next day I watched the sequel. I thought they were fun. And again, currently on HBO Max.
Those are probably took place in the early 70s, or they came out.
Yeah, I think 70s? One is 74 and one's 75 or something. Mid 70s, somewhere around there. I probably got the years wrong. And then the other 2 movies I want to mention are both movies that kind of had COVID on their mind. So the first one is called Stop and Go. It's on Hulu right now. It is a funny little comedy. There's two sisters, so it basically takes place when the lockdown is kind of first beginning after COVID-19 hit. And these two sisters have their grandmother is in a nursing home, and some of the patients in the nursing home, some of the people in the nursing home have gotten COVID. So they want to get their grandmother out of the nursing home before she gets COVID. And they take a road trip because I think she's in Washington and they're in, I don't know, Utah or something. I can't remember, but they're a little further down south. And so they take a road trip. They drive to go to get their grandmother. Again, it is a comedy. It's not a serious film. And I thought it was funny. It's real quick. Like it's 80 minutes probably, I think. It's a brisk movie. It flies by. The girls might be a little bit too cutesy at times. But I think overall it made me laugh. Like I thought it was pretty funny. And it's a well done kind of indie film. And the two girls that are in it, one of them is the director or co-director. I can't remember. And I think those two girls have been they're like childhood friends. So they've been making movies or little things together for a long time because during the credits of Stop and Go, it shows a bunch of their old home movies, which I thought was kind of fun.
Cool.
You know, they're basically like teenagers being silly with a home video camera or a digital camera or something. I don't know. I thought it was pretty funny. So check it out. It's on Hulu. And then the other movie that has COVID on its mind is a movie that just came out, literally. I think it came out like a day ago on HBO Max. It stars Zoe Kravitz, who is about to have a big banner year. Of course, the Batman's coming out in at least as we're filming this, it's going to come out in a few weeks.
Is she also in
early March?
That HBO Max show too, that like has a woman's first name is the name of the show.
Is it Kimmy? It's not a show; it's a movie. But
no, I don't know.
I'm not sure. I know she was in High Fidelity, like a high fidelity TV remake, like for Hulu, I think.
I don't know.
So Kimmy is a film that she did with Steven Soderbergh.
This is what it is.
Is that what it is?
Is this the one where she basically overhears a conversation?
Yes.
Have I told you? We haven't had this conversation about this. All right, go on.
Do we need to have it now or after we stop filming?
Man, I wrote a story that is eerily similar
to this
to the trailer that I saw for this movie. Okay. So I'm not saying that anyone would. Only like 3 people read that.
I see
that screenplay, but it's just like, oh wait, I know what.
Hey, I had an idea like that. I got you.
Much.
Well, so I liked it. I thought it's a fun little kind of thriller movie. Steven Soderbergh, and we said this when we did Contagion. Yeah. He's a very clinical and efficient kind of filmmaker. So there's not a lot of bells and whistles in this movie. Yeah. I feel like it's very just kind of straightforward, not melodramatic or anything like that. It's just kind of it does what it sets out to do. It's 90 minutes. It's fairly fast paced. I mean, it's a little bit slow to begin with because they establish Zoe Kravitz's character, and that's fine. So you see, because she's kind of agoraphobic, a little bit. She's kind of a shut-in. So it kind of establishes her behavior and how she likes to treat the world. And then she is forced to go out into the world at some point, and she gets chased, and it becomes that kind of a movie. But I thought it was good. I mean, I had a good time watching it. Again, it's not that long. It's 90 minutes. It goes by pretty quickly, and I liked it. So I would recommend it. Again, it just came out on HBO Max.
Awesome.
So
I remembered the guy's name's Alex Honnold. Is the
free climb guy,
free solo guy?
I gotcha.
And he's also in the Alpinists. So I'm curious to see that again. I'm curious to see where that movie falls with the one that I wrote. It'd be interesting.
Yeah,
that happens. Okay, is that it?
That's it.
All right, guys. Well, that was yep. Oh yeah. What are you gonna? Yeah.
So
you know what to do.
Color Purple was adapted from a 1982 Pulitzer Prize winning novel by a black female author, Alice Walker. Next time, we're going to do another Pulitzer Prize winning novel. This time, the novel came out in 1987 by a black female author. This time, it's Toni Morrison. And also, there's another connection, but I'll get to it when we do the movie on Wednesday. But that movie, the book and the movie, is called Beloved.
All right. Well, stay tuned for that on Wednesday, guys. That was our thoughts on Color Purple. Let us know what you thought about Color Purple. Do you think it still holds up? Or do you think maybe it's a little melodramatic like we both do? Leave a comment down below if you're watching us YouTube, or shoot us an email, realshame@gmail.com. We answer viewer questions that are sent to us at that email address, realshame@gmail.com. Please like, subscribe, share, do all that social media stuff. It helps spread the word, and we really do appreciate that. And stay tuned on Wednesday when we find out if Beloved is beloved or not. And I'll see you soon, guys. We'll see you soon, actually.
We'll see you.
All right. Bye. Thank you. See ya.